It was 1985 and Star Wars fandom and demand was soaring. The world simply could not get enough of this fantastic new universe or galaxy that George Lucas had introduced everyone to nearly 10 years prior, or a long time ago. All three installments of the originally released trilogy, episodes 4, 5, and 6, had come and gone in theaters, and the production of the next set was uncertain, but something had to be created. The story had to go on. And how better to continue a story and further develop a galaxy than with a spin-off? You may be thinking the obvious here, the further exploits of the Jedi Luke Skywalker. Does he ever truly walk the sky? Or maybe the misadventures of Han and Chewie. Now, both sound brilliant, but The Chosen Path was a journey chronicling misadventures, but these were the misadventures of everyone's favorite droid duo, C-3PO and R2-D2. Cue title, Star Wars, Droids, The Adventures of R2-D2 and C-3PO. In this series that ran for one season, or 13 half-hour episodes and 1 hour-long finale, we get to follow this dynamic duo in the time prior to A New Hope, but after Revenge of the Sith as they encounter criminals, pirates, the Empire, even bounty hunters, including the most famous of all, Boba Fett. Only this Boba Fett was first passed through the animated series transmogrification machine and came out different. Lighter, bluer? Hey everyone, my name is Jonathan, aka JK of JK Collects, and remember, we'll be posting a new video at least twice a week, if not more. If that sounds of interest to you, please click that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Now, in this episode, we're taking a closer look at the Hasbro Star Wars Black Series Target exclusive Boba Fett Droids Edition. All right, everyone, welcome back. There we have it, our Star Wars Droids, that animated series, The Adventures of R2-D2 and C-3PO, Boba Fett. Okay, really cool packaging. I like these new, some of the ones that have the flap on them. But let's turn it around here. And we've got a little drawing to kind of depict the animated series. And I mean, just look at the life in old 3PO's eyes there. And we've got some chaos going on behind them and running away. That is 3PO in basically a full sprint, if you will. I don't know that I ever saw him in the real life ones, well, real life, the live action ones, move quite that fast. It was more always just that shuffle, right? Yeah. So needless to say, he's booking it right there. And I don't blame him. I mean, there's definitely some trouble right behind him. But there we go. So there's the back. Nice little drawing on there. I do appreciate that. A little bit of touch of art. Over on the side, we've got the Star Wars Droids logo. On the other side, a nice drawing of the Boba Fett. Well, this transmogrification version of Boba Fett, where he changed to animated form, is what we'll say. And then on the front, this same, exact same thing, but right there with the piece of a ship or what have you in the background. You know, that little, almost poor-looking thing. Then we've got these two sneaking up the stairs. Good old R2 being able to just wheel up those stairs, I guess. That's quite the skill. Hopefully they can do it pretty quickly before old Boba turns around. But anyway, 50th anniversary, look at that. Yeah. Okay, so Target special, Target exclusive. I have seen this on the shelves many times already. And I know this one may very well be old news, but you know what? It's new news to me. I picked it up today, and I was just excited to get to share it with you. Okay, so the inside, we've got them running yet again, just like in the back. A little bit of information there, multiple language. I do appreciate that. They always have that. I never really pointed out. And there's our guy. There's old Mr. Boba Fett. And a little bit different, right? Lighter, bluer, still Boba. But you know what? Let's pop in. Let's take old Boba Fett and his accessories out and take a little gander and see what we're working with here, right? Nothing new sculpt-wise. I'm going to go ahead and predict it, right? So, yeah, I'm sure... Oh, would you look at that? It just jumped right out. Yep. I always got to take a pause for the pamphlet and see what form it comes out in. Okay, so we pulled old Boba out, and as you can see, we'll pull the flap open. Nothing else in there. I like the orange, burnt orangish background. Kind of like the Mandalorian colors, right? Oh, how ironic. But for the actual show, The Mandalorian, which, you know, this obviously does not belong to. Granted, he did appear in it in his non-animated form. Spoiler alert, I guess, but theoretically everybody has that. Okay, so let's pull the backpack out, the rifle out. Wow, those things are just excited to jump right out. They're almost excited as I am to get them out. Let's get him out, being mindful of that rangefinder. Don't want to cause any damage. Just look at that. It's tucked through that little hole, much like some of the other toy manufacturers that we've seen. Looking at you, McFarlane Toys likes to tuck the cape outside. One exciting thing I already noticed about that cape that we'll get to here in just a minute. But let's take a quick look at the weapons. As usual, we're going to start with those accessories, and then we'll jump into the figure itself. Again, no real changes, right? So there's that good old rifle that we're used to. I mean, the thing, it is a giant revolver with a stock on it, right? I mean, look at that thing. What a monster. A little bit of misshapenness, right? That just comes with packaging, being transferred from heat to cold and cold to heat, you know, as they're shipped and all that stuff. So, I mean, if we mention heat, a little bit will bend it back into shape, as we mention just about every single time, or I mention. But yeah, you probably know that way better than I do. A little bit of it's a fairly flexible plastic, especially right here. So be cautious with how thin that is. To me, it's a little bit concerning, being that is a point where we're going to be trying to fish parts of the figure through, right? So they can hold it. You know, there's a lot of action and whatnot going on around this. So a little concerning that it's so flexible, especially these two connection points there. So just be careful with that. And I will do the same. But I do like the stock. I like the detail on it. I would be remiss if I didn't say there's always that opportunity for a little bit of other color to make those things pop. Speaking of pop, how about a little poppin' pistol? So there we go. Again, very simple, very Nintendo Blaster looking, right? Anybody up for a game of Duck Hunt? Maybe we can paint it to look like the blaster, the Nintendo one. But regardless, it is a very cool looking weapon. I do like the gray color that these plastics come in because it ties so well with the figure that we'll get to. But again, hey, a little bit of color to make things pop. But speaking of color to make things pop, look at this little backpack. All right, his rocket pack, his jetpack with said rocket that, oh, would you look at that? Hey, how nostalgic and how retro. The rocket is part of it. It's glued on, right? I mean, I don't know if it's glued on or cast on, but it doesn't come off, needless to say. So what a nice little homage to the retro. These little rockets don't move around. It would be neat to have those where they had articulation to them, but I'm not going to try and flex it too hard because it will bend. But you can kind of see in looking at it more closely, it's a dead giveaway that the paint bleeds onto the cast light brown tannish plastic. So we're dealing with the cast plastic, and we've got the light blue paint apps on there. We can already see that it bleeds over on that. A little bit on both sides, right? Inconsistent bleed over at that. But, I mean, that's on the inside of that, right? No big deal. What am I complaining about? Because the rest of it looks pretty good, all in all. I mean, a little bleed over right there. But gosh, am I getting upset about a machine that did a great job, all in all, but had just a tiny bit of bleed over on the, I don't know, 100,000th one of these that it printed? Who knows what the next one looked like? But mine, that's what it looks like. So it's just, you know, I point those things out. And then this this lighter cream color on the base of the rocket here. Otherwise, nothing else. Paint apps, nothing else really. Nothing innovative about this thing, right? We've got the cast tan plastic and then some paint on that. But there we go. Now, let's bring the old guy out here. I know that some folks out there don't really care for this look, right? Because it's not the Boba Fett that everyone knows and loves. It was one that popped out in animated series and just looked weird, just as much as he looked strange in the holiday special, right? But there's something about it that I just really enjoy. I think it's the lighter colors, the light blue, because I am a fan of the color blue, especially the lighter shades of blue. So it's just neat, right? He's an iconic character, and it's just kind of neat to see him in other paint schemes. It's like playing the Player 2 version on Street Fighter, right? This is Boba Fett Player 2 Championship Edition, right? Okay, but enough about that. Let's dig into him. All right, let's take a look at the helmet. Right, nothing new. We've still got the dent, but we do not have really any other battle damage or wear included on this, right? So it's cast in this blue plastic, this light blue plastic with some black paint apps on there. And let me tell you, I mean, it looks pretty good. I mean, if you look really deep in there, you can kind of see where there's some imperfections. But in looking at it and how glossy it is, it's just so well done. you could almost believe that this thing was a piece of plastic, right? The actual visor or lens on there, right? So they did a good job with that. Is the short story. Rangefinder painted silver, pretty well done. A little bit right there where it didn't quite connect to the helmet. There's some of the helmet blue showing through at the base, but you know, still, and no real major bend issues with this thing, especially with it being such a flexible plastic. It would be neat if it could bend down. Again, you know, and this is that point where I'm going to say, hey, if we're dealing with a repaint, you don't really have to do a lot of work. It would have been cool to just maybe add this with a little bit of articulation where it would pop down, right? How much more fun would that be? Dent in the helmet, I think I may have already mentioned that. Let's look at the flexibility of it or the movement. So a little bit of side to side. Let's see about up and down in a profile. Wow, down is impressive. Up, whoa, okay, all right, we're dealing with some quality here, right? So we've got a good hinge up in there. Head's probably also on a ball in that. The neck is attached to the torso, so the neck is not contributing to this mobility. It's this hinge up there and probably the ball that the helmet is on that's really helping. And it is just that older cast helmet, right, that doesn't have the fake head or face in there. So, I mean, but hey, it's doing the job in this case. Let's check out the arms. Okay, right off, a little difficult to get the arm to bend up, right? Because we've got shoulder pad meeting this armor up here, right? So the pad we've got immediate interference, right? And this is probably, right, nothing different from what we're used to from some of the older Boba Fett figures. So opportunity there is, hey, this could have been updated, right? So we've already seen a couple things that could have been updated. No butterfly joint. Maybe that could have helped clear things out, right, if it was able to come out a little bit farther. But there's definitely interference there, which gets way in the way of mobility. No bicep, tricep. We do have right here at the elbow good rotation or swivel, whatever you want to call it. We have up and down on the elbow. No, yeah, well, we have forearm rotation as well. So we've got elbow, and then shortly thereafter, forearm rotation. So not bad. And it is forearm because it is taking the hand, the wrist with it. But let's take a look at the wrist. So we got good spin around. This even the gauntlet and the pad on the top of the hand and this little gun there are not interfering with the rotation. And just by looking at the joint, we have back and forth, right? But up, the back, we should say, or I should say, interfered by the gauntlet, right? But if we do it that way, yeah, okay, that almost seems painful, but I know we can all do that. I don't know, there's something about it just seemed off. Perhaps the fact that I'm twisting his arm so much. Yeah, okay, so we do have the cables over here. And let's look at the other side. Same thing with mobility. Same thing with the pads meeting the armor. Getting in the way, got that interference. I can see, yep, we have elbow rotation. A little bit higher. Yeah, a little bit higher because we're dealing with these cords, right? So we don't want to have too much ability for them to bend and stretch, but we do still have the forearm rotation right underneath the elbow. So that does become an opportunity where if it's turned too far, that can be stressed and that could pop, especially with it being, yes, it is a rubbery plastic, but it is still plastic. So it is still going to be a little bit more fragile than what some other options or a little bit more slack on that could have been. And real quick, just an inconsistency, right? So from gauntlet to cord from here to here, painted blue, but then it just stops back here. And that's a disappointment right there because it didn't even meet the end of this body piece where there is blue paint. It stops here. I mean, that is just, that's cutting some corners. Throwing it out there, Hasbro, that did not need to be cut, right? That's unfortunate. Just a little bit more blue paint running up there would have at least sold that and worked a little bit better. And, you know, you could almost say that, hey, well, you know what? Maybe it's tucked under something or maybe it's under a wrap. But just looking at the inconsistency of the end of that blue paint, I'm going to say that's not what they were trying to pull. I'm going to say they were trying to pull some, maybe some money savings there. Because it certainly looks like it is the same thing all the way up. At best, it might tuck up underneath here because it seems a little bit bigger there. Maybe slightly different texture, but it still should have, I feel like it still should have traveled all the way up there. Okay, I digress. It looks like I may have already even whitened the plastic by just playing with it like that. So be very cautious with that if you have not experienced a Boba Fett that this was, essentially copied off of. So forearm rotation is a thing, but very limited unless you want to take this with it, right? So almost pointless and dangerous to have that forearm rotation because of this. There, you're safe, but anyway, okay, you get it. Wrist, same capability as the other side, and we're also looking at the back and forth, right, or up and down depending on how you have it. So we got zombie Fett, right? There you go. Oh, it'd be good if we had focused Fett. So there we go, zombie Fett, ready to blast some things. All right, moving on. No lower like rib cage or mid torso. We do have hip rotation. No real, a little bit of flexibility in that. I guess it's like hip / slightly below rib cage that we've got there because we don't really have anything lower. And just by looking at where this line is, it kind of works as right in between, right? Normally it's a little bit higher and a little bit lower, but we've got one that's kind of right in between. Legs, let's see what we're dealing with here. So we don't have that grand pull down. We have them going out to the side. Not too bad for the Boba split. Coming up a little bit short, right? And on this side, it's just general articulation, right? Nothing's really getting in the way. It does look like this belt pouch and this leg pouch will be getting in the way, but I'm going to say no because I don't really see that being a thing. Now over here, this holster is definitely potentially causing a little bit of a hindrance, right? This one seems like it's flexing a little bit higher, and I could push this one and make this go up, but it does provide a little bit, but not a lot to be upset about, right? So we've still got good Boba split action. Okay, I see thigh rotation capability, but what I'm going to throw out there, it's tough to get a grip to make it do that, right? Because this is in the way, and unless you really want to push hard, it doesn't really grip, it's just going to slip. Doesn't grip, gonna slip. But we've got a little bit of thigh rotation. I will say it's a little difficult to grip because you got to grip that very top of the leg to do it. Knees, clearly we have a double knee based on the pins, and we've got the pad that travels with it. But it does create that very flat knee look, which is quite the rounded leg. But the flexibility, not bad, right? Ready to, let's check the limber up. Yep, he can definitely limber up for a good sprint in chasing some droids around in a cartoon. And no calf rotation, but we do have the good old foot up. Not a thing, right? So that's straightforward. If I try and push it up, it doesn't really do anything, but back, pretty good. And then we've got ankle breaker, so, pretty good there. All in all, mobility and flexibility, right? We're not expecting anything new on this. If you have a Boba Fett, you probably are already quite familiar with this. Maybe you have a little bit newer one that's been updated. But let's take a closer look at some of the additional paint apps, right? So we looked at the helmet. We've already got that one checked. Looking pretty good. Here on this plate, this is actually, it is painted on top of this gray plastic, but the texture of it makes it almost feel like it is plastic. But it's not, because we can see the gray show. Ooh, okay. We can see the gray showing through right there, right on the edge. So it is painted, but I do appreciate the texture of that. Like I said, makes it almost feel like it's plastic. And there's a little bit of imperfections on there. Almost looks like it's battle damage or what have you, but the rest of him not having any, I'm gonna mark it up as just an imperfection. Now we do have the physical damage from the normal cast of this figure, because they're not gonna take the time to fill that in, I guess, if we're just dealing with a repaint here. Otherwise, I mean, really, aside from the things that I've pointed out as we went along, like this, the wire, some just slight spots where paint went over or was slightly short. There's just not a lot of places where there is or was paint for there to be major issues. A couple imperfections back here on this darker blue, slightly grayish blue paint. Some marks, there's some brown, and I'm not sure where that one would have transferred from. And there's just, can you see that? Yeah, there's like just shadow marks on it. Almost like it was dropped or hit something, that look of plastic after it's smacked up against something. Anyway, the knee pads looking pretty good. No real major issues standing out there on those. Let's tighten that view so you can see. Not bad. All in all, I mean, there are certainly some spots where some of the detail could have been brought out. right? You can always have like a little bit of a wash, maybe some gray or a darker blue or something on there, right? I'm always saying stuff like that. But if you sculpt the details, let us see them. Be proud, show them off as much as you possibly can. I get budget's a thing, but you're not sculpting anything new. It's quite clear. All you're doing is repainting and repackaging. But last but not least, I do appreciate this little soft goods cape back here. The creasing, a little bit of an issue, right? But that can be worked out. A little bit of steam, maybe some careful ironing. It is this brown fabric, and it's got this orange, reddish orange paint on it, which makes it very stiff. Would have been cool to have a wire in there, as always. I think I mention that every time. I am always grateful that there's soft goods, but then I start pointing out, oh, well, why doesn't it have a wire? There's always something for me to complain about, right? But hey, as I say, third-party developers looking forward to maybe a cape coming around in the future for that. All right, but that's it. That's our guy Boba. Let's see how quickly he stands on his own. And there we go, right? So he is his own bounty hunter. Let me move him back a little bit so we can get a good view of him. But there he is. Immediately stood on his own. You can't, oh, and then he fell. But you can't tell him what to do. He'll stand when he wants to stand. And now he's looking down because he's sad about it. But there we go. We'll be right back with some 360s. Thank you. Okay, and here he is. Our Hasbro Star Wars Black Series Droids Special Edition, The Adventures of R2-D2 and C-3PO. Target exclusive. The lighter Boba Fett, the animated version, right? And as you can see, I've got him posed holding the rifle forward because I had a little bit of concern around those connection points between the stock and the rifle, the revolver. It did take a little bit of work, and those did want to flex a whole lot, but it is possible by sticking the thumb through there. I did have to pull the fingers forward to get them to grab the grip. It's as opposed to the normal way that you can kind of just push a gun in there and kind of use the grip to force the fingers forward. Had to be a little bit more careful. So just be cautious with that one. Know that that is a very soft, potentially breakable or damageable point. But anyway, this is our guy. Looks great. I definitely recommend it, unless you're just not into the color palette. But if you do like it and you want an extra Boba Fett for the collection, go for it. No major innovations, but still a really nice looking piece. Okay, there we go. Well, that about does it. Thank you for checking us out as always and for joining us on this collecting journey. Remember, look for a new video at least twice a week, if not more, and be sure to subscribe and click that like button. It would really help us out, and it would truly mean a lot to me. If you'd like to see some more videos, there are a couple of quick links on your screen right now for you to check out. And remember, no matter what, thank you for taking the time, and we are all in this world of collecting together. Let's look out for each other. Thanks.